The story of Bonnie and Clyde is a legend, a whirlwind romance fueled by crime and a desperate desire for fame. But their tale isn't just about two lovers against the world. It's about family, betrayal, and the moment a thrilling adventure turned deadly. The real story gets even more complicated when Clyde's older brother, Buck Barrow, and his wife, Blanche, joined the gang. Their arrival marked a new, more dangerous chapter, turning a pair of small-time crooks into a full-fledged criminal enterprise known as the Barrow Gang. Buck Barrow was, in many ways, Clyde's idol. 7 years older, he was the tough, charismatic big brother Clyde had always looked up to. Buck had his own long history with the law, having been in and out of prison since he was a teenager. He was charming, but he was also a hardened criminal. In early 1933, Buck received a full pardon from the Texas governor, a decision that would have devastating consequences. His wife, Blanche, a preacher's daughter, was deeply in love with Buck. She was torn between her desire for a normal, respectable life and her unwavering loyalty to her husband. She didn't approve of the criminal lifestyle, but she refused to leave Buck's side. So, when Buck decided to reunite with his younger brother Clyde, Blanche reluctantly went along for the ride. With Buck and Blanche joining Bonnie, Clyde, and their young accomplice W.D. Jones, the Barrow Gang was officially formed. The dynamic shifted immediately. It was no longer just a couple on the run. It was a mobile unit of 5, crammed into a stolen Ford V8, constantly looking over their shoulders. Their activities escalated from simple store robberies to more ambitious bank heists. They crisscrossed the rural roads of Texas, Oklahoma, Missouri, and Louisiana, a blur of dust and dread for the small towns they targeted. Clyde was the undisputed leader, the strategic mind behind their operations. Buck, with his experience, served as his trusted second. They were a formidable pair, and for a short time, they felt invincible. The hideouts were temporary and tense. They'd rent garages or tourist cabins, trying to blend in, but their nerves were always frayed. Blanche, in particular, found the life unbearable. Her diary entries from this time paint a vivid picture of constant fear and anxiety. She clashed with Bunny, two very different women forced into an impossible situation. Bunny was all in, embracing the notoriety and the danger. Blanche just wanted it all to end. She loved Buck, but she hated what he was doing. This internal conflict created a constant source of tension within the group. As the gang's crime spree intensified, so did their media coverage. The newspapers were obsessed with them, especially with Bonnie. They portrayed her as a gun-toting, cigar-smoking mal, a gunwoman as fierce as any man. This image was largely a fabrication, fueled by a playful photo they found at a hideout. In the picture, Bonnie posed with a cigar in her mouth and a pistol in her hand. The public ate it up. Bonnie Parker became a Depression-era celebrity, a symbol of rebellion against a broken system. She secretly loved the attention, clipping out newspaper articles about their exploits. She was no longer just a lovesick girl from a small Texas town. She was a legend in the making. But the legend was about to be written in blood. The thrill of the chase, the newspaper headlines, the close corset was all a dangerous game. But so far, they had avoided the ultimate consequence. That all changed on April 13th, 1933, in Joplin, Missouri. The gang had rented a garage apartment for a few days, a place to lie low. They were loud, they drank, and their behavior drew suspicion. Neighbors alerted the police, who assembled a 5-man posse to investigate what they thought were mere bootleggers. They didn't know they were walking into the lair of the Barrow Gang. When the police cars pulled up, the gang was caught completely by surprise. A furious shootout erupted. Clyde, Buck, and W.D. Jones opened fire with their Browning automatic rifles, overwhelming the unprepared officers. The low men were armed only with pistols. In the chaos, 2 officers were cut down. Constable J.W. Harriman was killed instantly. Detective Harry McGinnis was mortally wounded and would die later at the hospital. This was the moment everything changed. Before Joplin, Clyde had been involved in killings, but this was the first time the gang as a whole was directly responsible for the deaths of law enforcement officers in a direct confrontation. They escaped Joplin, but just barely. They had to leave almost everything behind, including most of their money, weapons, and personal belongings. Among the items recovered by police was Boney's camera, filled with the very photos that would cement their famed pictures of them posing with guns, embracing and living their reckless life. The Joplin shootouts turned the Barrow Gang from notorious robbers into public enemy number 1. The fun and games were over. They were no longer just running from the law. They were now being hunted. Every cop in the Midwest wanted them, dead or alive. The deaths of the 2 officers weighed heavily on the group, especially on Blanche. The romantic fantasy of a life on the road was shattered, replaced by the grim reality of being wanted murderer. The bond between them, once forged in adventure, began to crack under the immense pressure. The Joplin shootout was the beginning of the end. It set in motion a chain of events that would lead to more violence, more betrayal, and the eventual bloody demise of nearly everyone involved. The legend of Bonnie and Clyde was now inextricably linked with the deaths of good men, and there was no turning back. The path they were on now led to only one destination. Thanks for watching. If you're fascinated by the true stories behind history's most infamous figures, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next deep dive. We'll see you in the next video.